campaign's in chaos. You've had to do a runner from your main event this morning. What's this all about?
Well, no, we're always going to be out here campaigning, but look, the protesters regarding the dire situation in Palestine, I completely understand. And the UK Prime Minister...
No, they were talking about Labour. They were slating your party, your government, as well as talking about Gaza. This is a campaign in chaos, isn't it?
Well, look, I know that those protesters are upset about what's happening in the situation in Gaza, and that situation is intolerable, and I completely understand why people are upset about that. But Davy Russell, our local candidate here, is fighting hard for this seat, and he'll be here long after the by-election and has been serving his community for 45 years. And
what does it say, though, when the Deputy Prime Minister has to do a runner?
I don't think, well, you didn't see me doing a runner. There was no running doing. What we were doing is campaigning as we always expected to do around here. I'm out on the streets as it is now, and I'll be knocking on doors.
You're not going to win this, though, are you? The polls are suggesting reform are surging here. Nigel Farage's party against the SNP. This is a losing battle, isn't it?
Well, look, Nigel Farage is trying to sow division, and we've seen that with reform. And what Labour, Scottish Labour, and our candidate here is saying is about a positive campaign about how we can improve working people's lives. We've got a plan for change across the UK. We've put record funding into Scotland, £50 billion.
The voters aren't listening, though, Deputy Prime Minister. This is a government who introduced a change to WASPy Women, the two-child benefit cap. The list is endless, and the voters are listening to that, aren't they?
Well, this isn't a government that introduced a two-child benefit cap. What we've said is we've got a child poverty task force that wants to deliver for working people and to end the poverty, which the Tories inflicted across the whole of the UK for the last 14 years.
Will you end the two-child benefit cap?
And Scotland has had a record amount of funding from this UK Labour government, £50 billion, which the Scottish government, the SNP government, could have chosen to put that money into things like the winter fuel allowance.
This is about you, Deputy Prime Minister. Are you going to end the two... Well, that's because you're talking about the SNP. I'm talking about Labour. Are you going to end the two-child benefit cap? Are you going to do that?
I talked about Labour. I've just told you the Labour government brought in £50 billion record.
That's not my question. Are you going to end the two-child benefit cap?
You're not letting me finish my response. So we've said we've got, which I've said to you earlier, we've got a child poverty task force which is looking at all the different elements to what impacts on child poverty, which includes housing, and we know we've got a housing crisis here in Scotland as well as we have in England, which we've got a plan to build the houses we need in England.
I'm not talking about housing, I'm talking about child poverty. Are you going to end the two-child benefit cap?
And housing is a substantial amount of costs on families, as is work and making sure that works pay, and that's why 220,000 Scottish people who are on the lowest income have had a pay rise because of our employment rights bill and the changes.
You're dodging the question. Are you going to end the two-child benefit cap?
I've just answered your question.
You're talking about housing, you're talking about...
I said we've got a child poverty task force which is looking at all the different issues that we face. When economic circumstances change, we will be able to look at what elements impact on child poverty and alleviate that. And I know one of the things that will help with child poverty is for people to have better secure work, which is why we've got the employment rights bill. It's why that we've given 220,000 lowest paid Scots a pay rise through the increase in the minimum wage, and it's also why we're tackling housing in England and why we're pushing the SNP to tackle the housing crisis here in Scotland, because that and rents is a significant amount of money that people have to pay out.
Just before you go, yes or no, do you want to end the two-child benefit cap? I know you've talked about the task force. What's your view?
We want to end child poverty. Now, as someone who grew up in poverty, my mum and dad, we had 3 kids, we had child benefit and we were on benefits. It didn't help us in terms of poverty. What we want to do is help people alleviate poverty, to have good jobs, to have a good secure home and to be able to get on in life. That's what this Labour government is wanting to deliver.
Deputy Prime Minister, thanks very much.
It was meant to be a routine campaign stop, a photo op, a morale boost. But for Labour's deputy leader Angela Rayner, a visit to the Scottish town of Hamilton descended into something far more chaotic and revealing than the party might have hoped. Rayner was scheduled to bolster support for Labour's candidate in the Hamilton by-election, a key battleground that party strategists are desperate to hold. Instead, the visit was abruptly cut short when protesters, angry over Labour's stance on Gaza and broader social issues, forced her to abandon the event. "You didn't see me doing a runner," Rayner insisted to reporters afterwards in a comment that immediately raised eyebrows and questions. The footage, circulated widely on social media within minutes, told a different story. Rayner being swiftly ushered away by staff and security as chants rang out from demonstrators nearby. But the disruption wasn't just about optics. It laid bare a growing tension inside labor ranks. The widening gap between the party's centrist leadership and its restless grassroots, particularly on issues like the two-child benefit cap, a policy introduced under austerity that continues to inflict financial hardship on low-income families. During the post-walkout media scrum, I asked Rayner 7 times, yes, says Evans, whether Labour would commit to scrapping the two-child cap if it wins the next general election. Instead of a firm policy stance, Rayner offered only generic lines about reviewing the evidence and not making unfunded commitments, echoing the cautious, poll-tested script favored by party leader Keir Starmer. The message was clear: Labour wants your vote, but not necessarily your reform agenda. This isn't a one-off. The two-child cap has become a lightning rod for discontent within the party. Economists, anti-poverty campaigners, and even some of Labour's own MPs have condemned the policy as punitive and economically short-sighted. Yet Starmer's front bench refuses to commit to repeal, a decision that increasingly feels like a political liability. What happened in Hamilton might seem like a blip, a protest gone viral, a campaign stop gone awry, but it's emblematic of something much larger. Labour is surging in the polls, yes, but it's doing so by tacking to the centre and avoiding bold promises. The party is betting that a Tory collapse will carry it across the finish line. That strategy may work nationally, but on the ground, in working-class communities like Hamilton, the mood is far more skeptical. The people demanding answers aren't fringe radicals. They're disillusioned voters, many of whom once backed Labour loyally. They want clarity on child poverty, on Gaza, on how a Labour government will be different from the last 13 years of Tory rule. What they got instead was Angela Rayner making a premature exit and dodging straightforward question. Labour's refusal to commit to scrapping the two-child cap may be rooted in fiscal caution, but the political cost is becoming harder to ignore. The cap, which denies additional child support to third or subsequent children in most low-income families, has been condemned by everyone from the Child Poverty Action Group to former Tory ministers. It disproportionately affects women, single parents, and ethnic minorities, constituencies Labour claims to represent. When even the Tories admit the policy is flawed, Labour's refusal to oppose it outright looks less like pragmatism and more like cowardice. Rayner's deflection in Hamilton only amplified this perception. She had the chance to distinguish Labour as a party of principle, to say clearly that punishing children for the size of their family is wrong. Instead, she hedged. As Labour eyes Downing Street, it's trying to strike a delicate balance, reassuring middle-class swing voters while holding on to its base. But the cracks are starting to show. The party can't keep dodging protests, pretending to be above the fray, and expecting the public not to notice. Hamilton may have been a stumble, but it was also a warning. "You didn't see me doing a runner," Rayner said, unfortunately for her. "Millions of people just did. And they're still waiting for answers."